The cold hard reality about being an artist is that it's not going to be easy. And I've been doing this for many, many years. I've been a self-employed artist. I've worked for some of the world's biggest video games. I've designed a lot of things that you've seen if you play video games or read comics, or if you have any interest in 90s fashion. Okay, I've been doing art as a career for almost 30 years now. Well, I was born at a very young age, so I got my start as a professional artist at a very young age too. I was 16 years old, self-published my own first comic. So I've also trained a lot of artists, and I've seen a lot of artists come and go. And there's a lot of distinction between those who survive as an artist and those who end up throwing in the towel. And it's okay to sometimes go, all right, I'm just gonna keep this as a hobby. I wanna preface this whole talk by saying that. It's like, if you love doing something, sometimes it's best to not make that your job, because making it your job means oftentimes really compromising what you value. You know, you might be asked to paint or draw in a totally different artist style, and you might not even like that style. In order to get paid, you might have to draw a lot of things you don't want to draw, or teach people things that you don't want to teach them, and that can be a hard compromise. You're foregoing sometimes your own personal expression, which is the reason why a lot of artists get into being a professional artist. And then they realize that's not what they wanted after all, and then they go online with their bitter rants about it. And that's not good for anybody. But I would say that probably the most distinctive difference between those who survive as an artist and those who do not survive as an artist is your mentality. You need to develop a growth mentality that adapts to your environment. You cannot be the type of a person who is very stubborn about your views. You cannot be the type of a person who thinks the world should work the way that you think the world should work, and that's it. You can't be the type of a person who's a combative person. You can't be the type of a person who's very negative or bitter when you see somebody else's successes. You can't be somebody who's really self-involved, is what I'm saying. In fact, the most successful artists that I know, and when I say successful, I mean I know many artists who are millionaires or multi-millionaires. And how did they get there? Because they were adaptable. They were able to create a service. They were in service to an employer or to an audience that was willing to give them great amounts of money. And what does that mean to be in service? It means that you're not just doing what you want. It means looking at different markets and asking yourself, well, why do people pay for this art? Or why do people pay for this product? And then asking yourself, can I create a better or equivalent product that will provide to that same audience or to more people who are looking for that kind of product? And that's a business sense is all I'm really saying. If you're going to survive as an artist, you're going to have to adopt a little bit of business thinking as well. I can't tell you how many times I've been sitting down with an artist and they tell me, no, I want to do it this certain way. And I'm like, yeah, but you could be making money doing this other thing that clearly your customers are communicating to you that that's what they want from you. But that artist is like, no, I want to do it the way that I want to do it. And, you know, they need to start paying me. And it's like, well, that's not what they want to give you money for. They want to give you money for the thing that they're making it very clear they want to give you money for. And you're denying that. A perfect example is that, you know, if I put out a job listing for a stylized visual effects artist, I'll get 100 portfolios of photorealistic portraits, dog drawings, all 2D art, none of which actually serve the function or need that I have. And I'm not looking to just give money away. Like a job is because, you know, the employer or the customer has a specific need and you're able to fill that need. So learn to fill that need. It doesn't matter how good those portraits are. If I don't need portraits of people, I can't hire them. And the sweet spot, and before you get, you know, discouraged, the sweet spot really is in finding that blend of what it is that you love and what the audience loves, or the potential employer, you know, the customer. But this also requires certain internal boundaries be surpassed, be pushed through. And this means facing your shadow self. And some people just don't want to do that. In fact, a large majority of people really don't want to do that. I'd been recently reading a book by Tony Robbins called Awaken the Giant Within, and he talks about neurological associative conditioning. And I didn't make this video just to drop some fancy words, okay? What he's talking about is reprogramming your mind. And so a lot of times with humans, what we do is, if we have a bad social experience, we might replay memories of something terrible that happened to us. And we might decide, oh, I'm not a good public speaker, or oh, I'm not good with meeting new people, because you had a few bad experiences with it. And maybe you replay those bad experiences in your mind, and then every time you sit down to like actually engage in social situations again, you're replaying those bad experiences. And so you've convinced yourself that this is like always going to be the outcome, and that outcome was painful, so we don't want to do it anymore. And this is programming. You're rewiring yourself, and you can actually control that. It doesn't have to be reactive. It can be proactive. You can shape that. You can change that association. In fact, you might wonder, like, well, some people get obsessed with pain as pleasure. Well, how do they do that? They've rewired their brain to find pleasure in the pain, the physical pain. And you can choose what those things are if you're conscious of it and you're aware of it. And this is like the building blocks of empowering yourself beyond anything you could ever imagine. If you can control what you derive pleasure and pain from, you can literally shape your life into whatever you choose to be. The problem is most people go through their lives without really paying any attention to how they're programming themselves. They're allowing themselves to be programmed by outside forces. That's the difference between somebody who's a success at things and somebody who is not. And what this neural associative conditioning does is the practice of rewiring your pleasure zones, so that even when you fail at something, you can derive pleasure from that because you can see how you're going to grow from it. And so there's a kind of a mental trick here, and it's self-programming. When you can control your emotions, when you can control whether you derive pleasure or pain from something, then you can control your diet, you can control your confidence, you can control your destiny, you can control your attitude. And so you see this a lot when you look at comments. For example, when somebody does something really cool or they're very successful with something and they're proud of it and they post about it on social media, and you'll immediately find some real nasty comments below because somebody out there derives pleasure from trying to tear down somebody who achieved something that they couldn't achieve. And so this is the mindset of a loser, okay? If you're allowing yourself to feed your insecurities, you're allowing yourself to feed your negative mental beliefs. This also includes people who believe that, oh, everything's just gatekept, and oh, I could never make it because of my whatever restriction you've convinced yourself that you have. These are limiting beliefs that will keep you from achieving your goals. Meanwhile, you'll watch other people who look exactly like you. They've done similar things to you, but they're successful and you're not. And you could even use that as more fuel to make yourself more insecure and more limited in your possibilities of what you could achieve. But I almost have like a delusional sense of what I'm capable of achieving. And some people may say, well, yeah, you're just crazy though. But I would argue that I would much rather bank on myself and believe in myself and what I'm capable of doing and being willing to put in the work because I derive pleasure from that work, than to be looking at my life and going, oh, I never got to achieve those things because somebody kept me down. And there's always going to be people that you could blame for not getting the opportunities or levels of success that you would want for yourself. But if you can control what you accept as pleasurable. So, when I say something like, oh, well, I work long hours, I'll work 12-hour days, 7 days a week or 6 days a week, working on the new Twilight Monk video game that I'm working on. But this is my dream project. I derive pleasure from looking back on the work that we've all accomplished on my whole team together. And even though it's hard work and even though it hurts sometimes, and yes, there's a lot of sacrifice involved, it's a pleasure to me. It's something that I feel proud of, and I'm growing more pride from having faced the hard things. And that's something that's a quality that you're going to have to adopt if you're going to get into any kind of a creative field, because quite frankly, there is a lot of challenge, and art and creativity is subjective. So you're going to have fickle audience sometimes. You're going to have people who, if they're not getting what they want out of you, they're going to forget about you or ignore you. And sometimes it can feel like you're screaming into the void, and you're going to have to stick to your values regardless of whatever number of views you get on things. And it's all relative too, because I can tell you, Once you see this with YouTubers, there's a lot of YouTubers that are quitting recently because they used to get views in the millions, and now they're not able to, they're either bored or they're not able to provide the same kind of content. So they quit because they've gotten a little bit of a drop. But most people who are just getting started would kill to have even a fraction of the number of views they still get, even on their lowest performing videos. And so your psychology, your mentality, how you perceive the world around you and what's happening with your work and what's happening with the people that you work with, your ability to control how you think about these things, contextualize it properly so that it can be a motivational path for you to achieve your greater goal is so key in you becoming one of those successful artists versus the easy route, which is to just say, nah, it's all gatekeepers. I shouldn't have to learn how to specialize in my craft. There's all these gatekeepers. There's no point. It's too much hard work. Well, you know what's hard work is living a whole life and looking back and wishing that you would have believed in yourself a little bit more. So practice this by simply writing down what it is that you're looking to achieve. You could write that in the comments below this video. You could write it in a personal journey, and then work backwards and start to ask yourself, well, let's see if there's a model. Like, is there somebody else who has achieved the thing that I want to achieve? And then ask yourself, well, what do they do every day? Like, what are they working on, and how do they handle feedback on their work? How do they support other artists? Do they have a positive attitude, or do they have a negative attitude that's cranky all the time and complaining and attacking people on Twitter or half of their day? Also ask yourself how much time you spend really working towards your goal. Are you spending a lot of time just dreaming about it, or are you spending time actively pursuing it? And when you are pursuing it and you come up a little bit short on the response that you wanted, are you contextualizing that as though you're just on that journey and that's part of that journey? Nobody comes out of nowhere with a massive success. It takes years and years of struggle and focus. And if you have it written down, you're going to be able to stick to that focus a little bit more. And if you're actively every day contextualizing what your response you get to it properly, then you'll see it as something that you can continually grow. Choosing to be an artist as a career is one of the hardest things that you could possibly choose to do. Now, I know, maybe being an NBA star is like probably harder, or becoming a rapper is like probably harder, but I can say, like, becoming an artist is not easy. And I see so many really talented, incredibly talented artists that I've been trying to retweet and repost and get a little, just push their work out there a little bit more. They deserve more attention. And maybe if you're really putting in that passion into your work, maybe you deserve more attention than what you're getting too. But if you don't believe in your work and you stop, that's a crying shame, I'd say. Because nobody's ever going to believe in you more than you're going to believe in yourself. So you might as well find that nuclear power reactor within yourself, fire it up, use any criticism as fuel to prove them wrong. And if that means staying up all night to do it, if that means, like, there was a time I was applying for a little bit more of a photorealistic game, and I really love this game series. It's the Metal Gear Solid game series. And I was talking to a friend, and they're like, you could never work on a game like this. And I was like, bitch, I will show you. And I stayed up for like 2 days straight doing character designs that were in a photorealistic style. And this guy was blown away. He was like, you should draw like this all the time, because he appreciates more realism. But it was ultimately, I was glad I didn't get that job, because I was like, well, I just wanted to see if I could do it. And sometimes that's what you need. You need that fire. You need to, instead of reacting like with, curling up and rolling over and giving up, you need to like use that as fuel. Literally throw it in the fryer, fry it up, and then use all that steam, use all that energy to burn through the midnight oil. And you will find that you come out the other side of that with something that we call pride. We call that a little bit of pride in your personal best, like giving your all. And even if nobody concedes, even if nobody's like, man, yeah, you really nailed it, I didn't know you could do that, then you know what? You're at least an inch closer than you would have been if you just rolled over and stopped, These days I go onto YouTube, and for a period of time I would check out like what other YouTube artists were talking about, but it's become very hard because there's so much negativity, there's so much fatalism, there's so many people that are already pros that are just, they're trying to feed a negativity, and I want to reach out and just go, dude, stop, because you're just scaring people, you know, like this is the reason why it's of value, because it is hard. If it were easy, nobody would value it. Nobody would appreciate it. And yes, it gets harder. It gets harder every day, and it's going to get harder in 10 years. But you know what? There's going to be somebody out there that wakes up before their regular 9 to 5, and they put in 2 or 3 hours streaming their art or just doing new paintings and posting a drawing every day. And they're going to get the job opportunities that you wanted to have. And yeah, you could still go to your job that you hate and say, well, it was all gatekeepers. Somebody else got it because they knew somebody. And you could complain, and you could use that as a fuel to just keep feeding your bitterness and resentment and depression. Or you can just fucking put your back into it, get fired up, use that, get angry. If you're angry at me, use that, okay? If you're angry at, because I'm telling you the truth, use that. If you're angry at your parents for saying, I don't want you to be an artist. If you're angry at your friends because, they're telling you you're not good enough, then frickin' get a mean on. Prove them wrong. Come out the other side, and eventually, when you are landing that job as an artist, let yourself feel some pride in what you've accomplished. Don't let it just fester. You need a balance of this too. Yes, you can use that as a fuel, but you do need to remember that you are of value, and you are more than just your art as well. And your personal, unique, individual perspective and view and your fingerprint, that's your fingerprint. Nobody else has that. So even when you're feeling like it's never enough, remember that it'll always be enough for you as a person, as a human, but you can do more. You can do a better version of yourself. You can reach for a better version of yourself. And there's nothing in this world that you cannot accomplish if another person was able to do it, no matter who they were, where they came from, or what advantages you perceived that they had. You can achieve anything anybody else has in this lifetime, especially if you've got a lot of years ahead of you. It's harder if you're, pushing 75 and you're thinking, I want to get into doing concept art for new games. That's tough. That's a tough one. You could do it, but it's going to be a tough climb. Anyway, I hope this helps you. Obviously, I have a lot of tutorials that will help you. I make these tutorials because people ask me all the time, hey, how do I do concept art for games? Well, I can teach you that. How do I draw basic stuff, perspective? How do I shade? How do I light things? Do I need to go to art school? All that stuff is answered over in my Gumroad tutorials. I also have some free lessons over there as well if you just want to get in on the basics. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I will see you guys in the next video. Ciao, baby. Oh, yeah.